Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Lost in Criterion. I'm one of your hosts, John Patrick Owatari Dorgan, and with me, as always, is a man who's been to the moon more often than I have.
I am the Adam Glass, and, you know, considering you've been to the moon 0 times, and I've been to the moon 100 times, you're kind of downplaying that difference, aren't you?
Well, yes, I was trying to be subtle.
It's okay. I know you're jealous of my moon exploration.
Incredibly jealous, you gotta understand that.
This week we're watching, speaking of the moon, and I'm sure that it was coincidental that you pulled up the moon.
Yes, absolutely coincidence.
Yes, we're talking about For All Mankind, the 1989 documentary on the Apollo missions by Al Reinert. Al Reinert, who you may know as the co-writer of Apollo 13 and also the co-writer of Final Fantasy Spirits Within. But we'll try not to hold that against him.
And I can only picture as the documentarian from Spinal Tap. Even though I know it's not the same guy, to me, it's all I kept imagining is this guy with the microphone narrating.
Yes. Well, the footage from this film is pulled from NASA's own archives. The audio that isn't clearly part of the footage is interviews that Reinert started doing himself in '76. So this was a long time in the making. But yeah.
Yeah,
anyway.
So, I guess just to get right into it, that's the weird thing is, like, I read the thing that said, you know, the title bar on Amazon said, like, when it was made, but because there's no footage from today, it didn't click that this is a film from 1989. I was like, they must have made this while the Apollo program was going on. Well, sort of. The interviews are a few of them then, because they started in 1976, but...
no.
Well, no, because when did it end?
End?
The very end of the program.
74, I think.
I thought it said 76. Like I don't know.
I can't remember when the Apollo missions finished.
I don't know. But the point is that because all the footage comes from is real footage, it felt like I was watching something as it was happening. It was really a weird experience. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense here.
No, I understand. Well, the movie is also designed to do that. In the strictest sense, it's not necessarily a documentary because all of the footage from, it's footage from every Apollo 11 through 17, every Apollo mission that went to the moon, and I think there's even some stuff from Gemini as far as launch stuff goes. But every Apollo that went to the moon has footage in here, but it's all edited together as if it's one single mission.
I know, that's so weird.
And then we talk about space and people, everyone being in space. And it is very weird, and to that extent, I don't know if I would necessarily call it... That's enough narrative editing that
to make
makes
it maybe
less
not a
documentary to me. Obviously, the only documentary we have to compare to so far... in the Criterion
collection, all lies and filth.
Is Nanook of the North, and it is complete fabrication. 75 was the last Apollo mission.
Okay, I would.
But the last moon landing was 72. I just looked that up.
I would still call it a documentary because it hasn't quite crossed over into the drama.
Yeah, it's still not. It's still not fiction.
Right. I mean, they're all real people talking about a real event that happened in their life. But yeah, it is a really weird experience. I was wondering if that was on purpose or not. How the missions all blend together. Because when you get to like Apollo 13, like suddenly something goes wrong in this extended like mission with 25 guys on it.
That is the only piece of this where we get a little bit of a disconnect. Because obviously we all know what happened to Apollo 13. So when that stuff starts to go wrong and everyone's freaking out, and then suddenly, it's just fixed.
Yeah, but I got to point out something, okay? At least as a young man, being a huge fan of Apollo 13, okay? I love that the guy with the weird the solution they came up with, right? In the movie, you see them coming up with that solution, right? With the bag and then the filter and the hose and all that.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to see real footage of that guy cooking that up, right?
Yes.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize. It makes sense that since the same director is, since we're dealing with the same person, the writer of Apollo 13 and then the maker of this film, that he would have used tried to make that look exactly the same or as close to the same as he could.
Of course.
But, it never clicked when I was 12 years old or whatever.
Yeah, Apollo 13 was
I don't remember.
Strove for realism in as much as it could. I think it failed in some respects. I think.
I don't remember it very well.
I mean, it's like quotes. I think Houston, we have a problem was never really stated as such. In that,
right?
That's like the quintessential line of Apollo 13, and it wasn't exactly true to life the way it was stated. But history needs its editors too, I guess.
Right, but I just loved it. The guy with the bag and the filter and the was there.
He was there.
It made me so happy that he was center stage on that video. So we put the hose in the bag. Yeah, we got the duct tape.
This is a great companion piece to watching Apollo 13.
Yeah, they really should be on the same DVD. They should be in the same DVD pack.
Yeah, we'll have to get that done. We'll start writing letters, Pat.
Yeah, right. A letter writing campaign to the Criterion Collection. Okay, you guys need to buy the rights to Apollo 13.
Yes,
it shouldn't be too hard. It's not like it won any Academy Awards or anything.
No, it won a lot of Academy Awards.
It was a joke, Adam. I was being sarcastic.
Oh,
that's what we'll write in the letter to the Criterion Collection.
Yes. No, it was a joke, Adam. I was being sarcastic.
But we're gonna write that whole thing into the Criterion Collection. Mm-hmm. No, that was a joke. Blah blah blah. Yes. I'm getting confused.
Pat, that's so easy sometimes.
I know, but I do like watching them. This is the most footage I'd ever seen of the actual activities on the moon, and I found that really exciting. Because I usually only get to see them skipping around for 10 seconds, and so in whatever history class or whatever they talk about it, it's always and then we went to the moon, and it's a video of a guy skipping for 10 seconds, and then it's over.
It'll be Neil Armstrong descending the ladder.
Yes,
video
it'll be
guys
that.
Skipping. Whoever hit the golf club.
Yeah, and that's it. It's the end.
Hey, we had fun while we were
But it was really neat to watch him collecting rocks and
and driving around.
Yeah, and
talking about that dream.
Yeah.
John Glenn's dream. Was it John Glenn? It was.
I don't know, but it was so great. I was like, wow, this documentary has a 5-minute dream sequence discussion.
I did read one thing, incidentally and completely unrelated to any amount of research I did for this. I happened to read this week that John Glenn, while Neil Armstrong was a deist, John Glenn was a pretty strict Christian, and he actually took communion on the moon with a piece of communion bread that he had taken from his church's, because his church was going to have communion around the same time. So he took a piece of bread, and the minister, when they pulled out the communion bread on Earth, said, "Oh, by the way, a piece is missing because John took some with him and is having communion about right now."
That's great.
Yeah. Which I thought was really interesting.
That is. That's fascinating.
So he is the only person to take communion off Earth so far.
Wait a minute. You've never done communion on the moon?
No.
Your mother would be so disappointed.
In all my 100 churches, I have very strict beliefs about communion needing to be with other people, and since all of my churches
and also
on the moon are
in a breathable atmosphere.
Well, yes, and in a breathable atmosphere. Transubstantiation
requires the atmosphere.
It's really hard to do without oxygen. Man, we could go on so many terrible jokes.
I know. Let's just leave it alone.
My mind is it's so much fun to think where we could go here.
I know, it's great. It's just leave it, because now the audience can enjoy this mindscape of all the different possible difficulties of transubstantiation on the moon.
Yes. See, the bread into flesh isn't so hard, but the
blood into the wine into blood.
Wine into blood is really where you hit the problems in non-atmospheric conditions.
Because it doesn't pour. It just It's horrible. It just beads up and floats around. So, this movie is wonderful. It's a great 80 minutes. Not a lot in my mind to say about it because it's a documentary.
Yes.
It's like, it's just want to tell people, like, man, just go watch it.
Yeah.
Enjoy watching the history of the Apollo program.
Well, unfortunately, this episode can't be 10 minutes long.
I know, so, Adam. What are we going to talk about?
No, there is.
Let's compare this to Armageddon.
No, let's not compare this to. Okay, space travel in this movie was much more realistic,
much more accurately depicted.
I will say that, much more accurately depicted. Actually, in that regard, I was really impressed with how many cameras NASA set up on equipment that would possibly just be junked. Like every piece of the rocket that fell to Earth had a camera mounted.
I know,
on it.
right? Like NASA was like, "Should we put a camera in here?" Yeah, why not?
Yes. This won't affect aerodynamics, will it? No.
Well, it'll just all burn up. Well, how are we going to get the film? Don't worry about that.
Exactly.
I assume those all had to be broadcasting cameras. That there's no way they could have gotten film.
I would think so. So. Now, obviously, the ones the astronauts had themselves were 16 millimeter. You could kind of tell looking at them. But yeah, the ones that were mounted, I assume, were just broadcasting.
I guess though they always were on the part that wasn't falling. Because when we watch the stage separation, it's the because the piece falls away from us.
We definitely get a shot of a camera in a piece that's falling.
Okay.
Because I specifically remember the line of the Earth kind of turning.
It could be broadcasting, or maybe they were just like, maybe we get lucky and it survives.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Reiner decided to make this movie when he discovered that NASA had thousands of hours of footage, or hundreds of hours at least, of footage that the public had never seen.
I'm going to guess probably thousands.
Possibly thousands. I mean, if they were recording
everything. Well, you got to guarantee they were recording everything. You don't go to the moon and then, forget.
Yes.
But have you ever heard about what happened to the original recording of the moon landing? About recording of Neil Armstrong, his first step on the moon?
I believe I've heard, but go ahead.
I can't remember the details exactly, but basically, the original recordings were lost because somebody taped over them.
Yes.
And the only recordings were some place, some TV station in Australia, and then they lost those recordings as well. So all there are cheap re-recordings off the original recordings.
Yeah,
there are no
copies
original
copies
because because those were the closest you could get at that time to something that would kind of be high def at that time, the original source recordings. But they keep losing them. Yeah,
by and large, the quality of video that we have.
Well, yeah, because that's what makes the actual the flag planting and those really early ones so startling is that when we're driving around in that truck in the cart, it's crystal clear.
Yeah.
And it's so jarring to watch a switch between different recordings.
Yeah, I had no idea that America had the technology to do that on a soundstage in '68.
Oh, I know, right? Well, it all has to do with lighting and
there's a lot of gaffers we had to kill after that.
Are we just gonna run with the idea that the moon landing was fake for the rest of the? When you watch this much footage, has anybody who thinks that this was faked watched this documentary?
Well, I think
because
the average person I know, and I do know a few, or have experience with, who believes that the moon landing was faked, believes that Apollo 11 was faked, believes that Apollo 12 was faked, does not believe that 14 through 17 were faked.
Interesting.
That we actually went to the moon in the 70s. 72 at least.
What? Well, why would you? I don't understand what the major difference is there.
The technology didn't exist in 68, and we wanted to prove that we could do it just to beat the Russians, so we faked it. That's the justification.
But if you watch the footage, the technology... I don't know. Yes. I guess if that footage is all from
the technology between 68 and 72 didn't really change, is the thing.
Yeah, it's what changed in it? We got slightly better like reel-to-reel cassette recorders.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, what changed. I mean, everybody admits that the moon was a miracle of bootstrap science engineering. Anyway, they're like, "Oh, that shouldn't have worked."
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know why.
It's very interesting. One of the Criterion comments, and I can't find any confirmation of this anywhere else, but one of the comments on the Criterion's page dedicated to For All Mankind says, the commentator says that he remembers a tagline of this movie being the most expensive movie ever made. And, of course, this was the most expensive undertaking in human history that wasn't wholly devoted to war, or even partially devoted to war. But someone outside just broke a bunch of glass.
Yeah, good job.
I really need to close my windows when I do this.
Yeah. And maybe buy a gun.
No, I'm not going to buy a gun. I'm not going to buy a gun.
To defend yourself against glass breakers.
I've been to the moon. I don't need to defend myself.
Right, but you've never taken communion on the moon.
Yes, but I've lived the life that needs to be lived.
I see. So you have no regrets. You're not looking back.
No. Yes. Anyway,
yeah.
Most expensive undertaking in all of human history. They believe they taglined this the most expensive movie ever made, according to this guy. Though IMDb on their tagline list does not list that, but you can't really trust IMDb. I think we've firmly established by being alive that no one can trust IMDb.
Right.
It's worse than Wikipedia.
Yeah,
it's really
it has.
Like, at least with Wikipedia, you have someone else who's going to come by and say, "No, that's wrong." IMDb, no one does that. I don't think.
Right. No, it's just a sea of unverified information. So I would like to point out.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I want to say, and we were talking about this before we started recording, and you mentioned obviously talking about this being the most expensive movie ever made. That kind of makes some assumptions that our war documentaries. If we assume that everything involved with making a war,
right? If we use the same criteria we're using for this movie, for war documentaries would obviously win because every tank, every uniform, every helmet, every man's paycheck goes into the
especially World War I and World War II, where it not only represents the individual items on screen, but the entire force of the economy behind those items.
Right. Like, all you need to really do is look at, like, any documentary of the D-Day invasion, and you've already got a documentary that probably costs more money.
Yes.
But, like, I don't think that's a fair system to use.
No, it's not a fair system at all, but it's the one we're going to talk about.
So, I'm reading IMDb, or not IMDb, because that would be a waste of my time. I'm reading Wikipedia, and you were talking about how much footage they went through, and apparently it was 6 million feet of film.
6 million feet.
That Al Reinhardt and Susan Corda, his editor, sifted through.
Yeah.
I don't know what 6 million feet is in time, but it sounds like a lot.
I don't know what... It sounds like a lot, but if it's played really fast...
Right. We sorted through that in like a couple hours.
If we add the Benny Hill theme to the background, it could be 5 minutes of film.
Right. Yeah.
That would make Apollo 13 a lot funnier.
Yeah, or just really even more depressing.
Well,
watching people almost die to yakety sax is not... So and they talk a little bit about the some of the things they faked, like for this documentary specifically. Like,
things they faked.
Well, they used footage that was not from that situation because there was no footage of that thing actually happening. The images of rocket stage separation are test footage shot during earlier missions. What you and I were talking about. Because apparently they maybe did not strap a camera into the actual Apollo rockets because they are not madmen.
Yes.
And they actually wanted the thing to fly and land.
But during the test, they needed to make sure everything was
working right. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And there's a couple other ones like like a shot used to represent translunar injection is in fact footage of the Gemini mission reentry.
Okay.
And some of the spacewalk images are from an earlier Gemini mission.
Probably I don't know what that translunar word means.
No clue, but there's a link and I can follow it, but I don't have that kind of time.
Don't click on that.
No, it's getting clicked on, and then later I'm going to find out what translunar injection is.
Okay.
Because there's already I can see there's diagrams. I'm so excited.
You'd think that I would know, but I actually haven't.
Well, it's mostly on autopilot, right?
Yeah. Well,
you have one of those.
I've
Nazi,
actually just kind of been.
You have not one of those Nazi space rockets featured in the film. Was it Iron Sky? Right.
Well, you see, it's very interesting. Iron Sky got some things wrong. The Nazis and the tech I used wasn't exactly a rocket ship. It was teleportation.
Oh, okay. So it was not a giant shell shot out of a giant cannon.
No.
At the moon.
No. Well, I mean, that's how we got the other pad.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
And I say we, I mean the Nazis, but I'm using the tech. So
right. Are there still Nazis there?
No.
What did you do with them?
I
gave them communion.
Well, no, it was
lunar communion is deadly.
When I got up there the first time, it was very clear the Nazis had no idea what to expect. And
you caught all the Nazis by surprise.
No spacesuits whatsoever.
Oh, right. Kind of didn't really think that one through, did they?
No. They were really great with some things, and other things
really bad planning on other fronts.
Really terrible things on the other.
Just a whole bunch of not even skeletons, a whole bunch of perfectly preserved remains of people clutching handkerchiefs over their mouths.
Yes. This, if they hadn't been Nazis,
right, you would actually feel sad for them, right?
Yeah.
Wow, we have digressed severely.
That's okay. It's fun.
Because
Brian Eno did the original.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah,
which is there's not a whole lot of original music, but it's also Brian Eno, so it's very atmospheric anyway. What's there, right. You barely notice because
right because it's the most like atmospheric, laid back music possible.
Yes, I was impressed with the non-original music in this because I had no idea that such things existed. The cassette tapes recorded by Merle Haggard and
I know, isn't that great?
As when they started talking about them, how they all had these mixtapes of they could take. I wasn't expecting anyone to say, "Oh, so we heard you're going to the moon, and we thought we'd play this song for you."
I know, right? It's
they gathered everyone on a stage at the Grand Ole Opry and just said, "Yeah, play whatever you want, but it's for the astronauts."
Yeah, it's almost like nobody who recorded the tape actually thought it was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they were all in the same camp as the people who think there was no moon landing.
Yes.
They're like, oh, they're not going to the moon. They're just screwing with us.
It's the people who think there is no moon.
Yeah, right.
The moon is a hoax. It's true. It's just a balloon. The government surveillance.
keeps just in high Earth orbit. The mixtapes are great, and then I kind of realize that the fact that we don't know about a lot of this kind of stuff is why NASA doesn't have funding.
Yes, I know, right?
And why a man singing a what am I thinking of?
Chris Hadfield singing Space Odyssey or Space Oddity, rather.
Yeah, Space Oddity.
Yeah.
See, Oddity can get as much attention as it does. It's you need to just give us a little bit more. Oh, these are just the weirdestly the most absurdly normal human beings possible.
What I said when that came out, when I first saw that video was, if Chris Hadfield had incorporated the Mohawk guy from the Mars Curiosity control room, and put a Kickstarter link at the end, we could be colonizing Pluto by next week.
Well, I really wanted to write an article, and I started it and never finished, so I'll just say it in this because it's the perfect time. It's you know what, the first thing that showed up when I watched that video, I'm really enjoying it, and immediately after is the comments. First comment, I can't believe my taxes paid for this guy to sing karaoke in space.
Well, to be fair, his taxes didn't.
That's what I know. That's what I was like.
International.
And what I was thinking was what do you think the likelihood that this guy is Canadian is? I'm gonna go with 0.01%. And then
It
I
wasn't
also
really
combine that with the
karaoke.
fact that, yeah, but also it's an international endeavor, so who knows?
Yes.
Like, whose taxes paid for him to go to space, and then sing karaoke, which, mind you, was misspelled.
Of course it was. It was a YouTube comment.
But, like, severely misspelled, to the point of almost being illegible. I was like, is that...
Stuff like that reminds me of my...
I was like, what?
My favorite XKCD comic is about a button on YouTube that automatically reads your comment back to you before it posts.
It should be there.
So you have one more chance to realize that it's complete idiocy.
It's just gibberish. It's not even a full sentence.
Yes.
No, I like it was like the juxtaposition of probably one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen in my entire life with the most generic YouTube comment, hateful YouTube comment possible. I can't believe my taxes paid for insert thing here.
Anything.
Yeah, it was like your taxes didn't even pay for him to go to space unless you are maybe on the off chance that you're Canadian.
Yes.
Which I guess is possible.
Well, let's see. How did he get up there? Because
he didn't. Russian rockets.
Go up. Yeah, it would have
flying
been
a Canadian man to a space station that was built by.
I mean, obviously,
joint
we have some money invested in the space station.
I mean, we built some of the modules.
Besides just manpower.
We built some of the modules, but not all the modules.
Yeah. So, without if this guy's American, without his tax money...
We probably would have had to leave.
It wouldn't exist in the state that it's existing.
But mind you that his taxes play such a minor percentage role in the actual grand total. Minus his taxes, maybe a decal wasn't applied?
Probably. One American flag sticker.
Right, is missing. Where instead of saying, like, International Space Station, it says International Space Station.
Yes, they lost an N.
Yeah, they're like, well, we just can't afford it, guys. This guy refuses to pay his taxes.
Those N's are probably a little more expensive. They do have to exist in space.
That's true. But the ones on the inside.
Yes.
I assume those came out of, like, a model kit.
Do you think there's a lot of labels inside the International Space Station reminding the astronauts
where they are
that they're on the?
I like to believe that there's a map that says you are here.
Yes, constantly updated with where they are in orbit around Earth. There's actually a really interesting shot too, and one thing I'd actually seen before was the Bedouin campfires.
I had not seen that before. That was really fascinating.
Yeah. Going over the complete darkness of Earth,
yeah,
the spots of fire, and talking about how they're humans down there and we're humans up here, and we're all related and all one. That was really obviously For All Mankind is meant to pull that, and what Armstrong said, one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind, and everybody. Even despite the fact that we planted an American flag, which is a little incongruous with everything else going on, but everybody's like, this is humanity. This isn't American.
Well, and it lines up with the speech that kind of set the whole thing in motion.
And Kennedy throwing his hat over the wall, which starts off the film and bookends the film really because it starts and finishes. But Kennedy talking about this is the next step of human evolution or whatnot.
Right, spaceman.
Yes, discovering new rights and guaranteeing them, I think is what he says, which I thought was pretty... that Kennedy was obviously a great speaker. We're not treading new ground by saying that.
No, we are. We're the first.
We're the first people to acknowledge that John F. Kennedy could talk.
Yes.
Pat, of all the absurd things we've said in this episode, that might possibly be the most
I don't think so. Remember, moon transubstantiation was a topic.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
And space Nazis.
Everything we learned today.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great movie, and there's nothing to say about it, because it's just fact.
Yeah,
it's like
that was.
It's
I was completely engrossed in it.
Oh no,
there was
one of the rare occasions in this effort of ours, this probably second most expensive undertaking of mankind's history, to watch all the Criterion movies.
The personal toll is very great.
Yes, there's lots of time, and for me, lots of Amazon purchases. But I've lost. Oh yeah, it's very rare in this undertaking that I get whatever movie we sit down to watch is truly engrossing for the entire time. This one I had no trouble watching. And if it were not only an 80-minute movie, I might consider buying it. But because I'm not sure I would get my money's worth, I'm not sure I will.
I could watch so much more of this. I could keep watching this.
I know.
From talking about all the 6 million feet or whatever.
Yeah, but I'm actually glad that he did it the way he did it. It ends before you get tired of watching people be in space.
Yeah.
Because if you dragged it on too far, it would turn into one of those history videos we watched in history class. Where you're like, dear God, just end. This doesn't feel that way. You feel like, oh, space is awesome. Humanity is awesome. We kick space's butt.
We totally kick space's butt.
Especially dude with filter and hose. He really kicked space butt.
He won.
Yeah, he won the I saved a bunch of astronauts prize. It's only been given out like a couple times.
You know what I really I understand focusing on the guys who actually went to the moon.
You want a control center documentary?
No, they really glossed over all the guys who had to sit in the ship waiting for the guys who went back to the moon.
I know those poor fellows. That's got it, man. You draw that straw, and you just gonna be like, man.
Oh, I get to go all the way there, and then
I don't get to see it. Yeah,
2,000 feet. I'm sure it's more than 2,000 feet.
But it's the same. It's the same. Like I've rode in this thing for how long, and then I have to watch.
Yeah.
From the car.
It's still exciting to watch from the car, though.
Well, yeah, when it's the moon.
Yeah.
And you got to figure that those guys did get a different treat. They got to circle the moon.
Yes.
Multiple times. Which is not maybe as awesome as walking on the moon, but when you figure that, like, while they're goofing around on the moon, you actually get to, like, see the moon.
He gets to see the moon rise.
Right, the Earth rise. And the other guys get to from the moon's surface, but at the same time, like, he actually is there long enough that, like, for him, he lived with the moon as, like, the thing outside of his door. Whereas the guys on the surface are so busy running around collecting rocks and doing jobs that they talk about that a little bit in there. It's like sometimes you just have to take a minute for yourself and say, holy crap, I'm on the moon.
Yes.
Well, they use better verbiage than I did, but the point is...
Listen, I am sure that...
Somebody said, holy crap, I'm on the moon.
In the audio that we're not hearing, there were a lot of holy craps we're on the moon.
Yeah.
If not worse language.
Yeah, probably. But, like, that... The guys in the up in space at the same time got to go, around and around and say...
He really got to absorb it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah. They got to really, like, take in the moon.
I would be surprised if they didn't have other jobs to be doing.
Oh, I'm sure they were very busy.
Surveying of some sort, and I'm sure they were very busy, too.
I'm sure they were, recording or something.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be the only guys who get multiple shots at seeing the dark side of the moon and other weird things like that.
It wasn't like the scenes from that, was that Rocket Man? Where he wakes up on the way to Mars super early, so he just goes crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's not
that
just
movie.
Alone in space. What a terrible movie to reference.
I know, right? What are you doing to us?
I don't know. The other alternative reference there was Prometheus and the robot playing basketball the entire time everyone's asleep.
Yeah, that's true. There's not a lot of examples of bored spaceman.
Yeah.
But there should be, because it's... If you happen to be awake for that trip, that's going to be a boring one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that no one in this film got the space madness.
Well, they kind of did. You see them doing a lot of stupid stuff in that capsule.
Well, yeah.
There's a lot of spin.
They're trying to have fun during their downtime.
Right. There's lots of spinning and talking about pooping in bags.
Which was my favorite part.
So, yeah, like, I'm glad that NASA sorted that one out since then.
Yeah.
Like, that pooping in bags was probably not the best plan.
You gotta make sure it's not floating around. Actually, talking about poop floating around. I mean, at least we didn't.
Well, but it's a real thing. Yeah. Thank God, there's no footage.
But I'm glad. I'm just glad that the documentary mentioned it, even acknowledged that was a thing we had to think about.
Well, it's really funny because like if you've ever read, what's her name, Mary Roach wrote a book about space.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember what it's called, but it does get into like the art of pooping and defecating and urinating in space.
Yeah,
and like it's still pretty basic technology, right? It's still basically a vacuum tube stuck to your butt, I think.
Yes,
but at least somebody sorted out. Maybe we should put a vacuum tube in this instead of just letting them try to poop into a bag. Like, I don't think I could poop into a bag on Earth, Adam.
It'd have to be a pretty big bag mounted on like a chair.
Right. That might actually have a pipe leading down to a septic tank. Oh wait, that's a toilet.
Yeah. No, that's just a toilet.
But yeah, no, it's just one of those things where like when I started thinking, I was like, man, I'm glad we sorted that one out. Because like it's really hard to imagine all those guys on the space station like still pooping in bags, being like, quick, shut it up, zip it, quick.
Did Hatfield ever make a video about that?
No, just crying.
I feel like probably he did. Just crying?
Yeah, there's one about how you can't cry in space. Because it requires gravity.
Okay. Crying requires gravity.
Well, you get tears.
Yes,
but you just sit there.
Yeah.
And he did a demonstration of how you can't cry in space.
How did he force himself to cry?
I don't know.
Is Chris Hadfield just a great actor? No wonder he's on the soundstage.
Or he's a pretty hairy man. There's a lot to pull to make that man cry.
I suppose. Okay.
If you've ever had a mustache hair pulled out forcibly,
yes,
that's a crying situation right there.
It's true.
Man,
it's true.
We're struggling here, Adam.
No, stop acknowledging that we're struggling.
No, I got to. So, speaking of...
this is just an episode where the film itself gives more to talk about.
Well, the film itself, because otherwise we can get into a synopsis, but then we're just doing our own personal history of the Apollo program.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Yeah, just watch it.
Yeah, just watch the documentary. What else? Yeah, just random things like them talking, like the chit-chatting on the moon is really nice. Like,
yeah,
those the live audio, or not live, but not interviews, but the actual audio from the recordings of like talking about how like dirty they are and stuff like.
This made a really concerted effort, I think, to show that the astronauts who went to the moon were just guys.
Yeah,
they're humans working for humankind.
Yeah, and doing the same sort of things that you would do if you ended up on the moon. The kind of dumb stuff that you would come up with to do, like
the stupid Galileo experiment.
Yeah, and like
there's a proof. We don't need proof. We already know it's true. But thanks, guys, for dropping a feather on the moon.
Right, yeah. And then a little, but just in like joyriding kind of a little bit.
Yeah.
And like one of them telling the other not to crash into the module.
Yes.
It's like I was like, somebody's like, it's the worst backseat driving ever. It's like they took my wife to the moon.
Well, they were complaining about the backseat driving.
Yeah, I know. They started complaining about the
from Earth. Oh, that's good. It would be great though if he had crashed into the module. Like the only thing you could hit for thousands of miles.
It's like, how did you hit the only object in this place? Then you hit it.
Yes. Or the flag. Accidentally run over the flag.
Oh gosh, that would be so depressing.
Guys, we need a new one.
Yeah, we do. Did we bring any extras? Who's gonna know? For all we know, the flag got run over.
Yeah, maybe it did happen, and Reinhardt just left that up.
Right, and then like as long as there's no video of it, and
yes,
like it's not like we're gonna go check.
That was why the original Armstrong video got lost.
It's like, oh man, he ran over the flag.
He caught the space madness for a second and just threw it out into
threw it into space.
Orbit. Yeah, javelin to the flag straight out into the...
It's flying next to the golf ball into the furthest reaches of space. You know what, though? You got to think, right? There is a golf ball somewhere floating through space.
Well, I was thinking about that.
Did he hit it hard enough to break gravity?
Yeah, I can't imagine that even with the lower gravity and lack of atmosphere on the moon, that he hit that ball hard enough to achieve orbit.
We're talking about a frictionless environment, basically, right? He has no air to...
Yeah.
And then, it'd be really interesting to find out.
I bet Wikipedia would be good for this.
Yeah, but we should.
And I bet we should just not know it.
Yeah, we should just not know. And you know what? If you're a listener, don't tell us.
Well, hopefully by the time this gets posted, we'll have figured it out.
Yeah, I hope. Right? We've only got a year.
No, we're only 30 weeks. Or 30 weeks. Yeah, 30 weeks ahead right now.
Okay, so only 3/5 of a year.
Yeah. We're way too far ahead. We should fix that.
No,
anyway.
Well, that would require us to stop recording, which means we wouldn't talk to each other anymore. I would forget your name. You would forget my name. We wouldn't watch any of the movies, and before you know it, we wouldn't talk anymore.
It's true. That did happen.
Yeah. It's depressing. Yeah, I'm tearing up a little bit.
Too bad.
Mainly, I'm tearing up because of the poop in a bag thing. That still makes me laugh. And
it's funny enough. I'm crying about it.
Yeah, no, it's actually. I've actually had a couple of moments where I've laughed hard enough that I'm crying a little bit. I mean,
yeah. This was really. We're really. I mean, it's basically all we've said is this was really well done.
Well,
which,
and it is.
It's got humor. It's got drama.
We've never done a documentary that wasn't bullshit.
Yes, were we going to just talk about how fake it was?
Right, and so, I mean, we're in a really rough situation because there's no plot. There's no story. I mean, there is, but it's a story.
Well, there is a plot in a story.
But it's not a fabricated one. Therefore, you can't critique. You can't. You're like, I don't know about that whole... I don't know, that Apollo 12 seemed...
See, what really should have happened is after the landing, the last scene should have been all 24 of the astronauts crawling out of the same capsule.
Yeah, right? Like, oh man, it was tight in there. Or yeah, it should have been like a Benny Hill thing. Where like you got both doors, right? And they just keep coming out and it never stops. It's like 400 astronauts climbing out of it.
The canoe scene from Nanook of the North. Where they just keep
the kids keep piling out.
Yes. Yeah. So why was there a baby?
Yeah.
Inside. But yes.
It would be beautiful.
It would be.
Yeah,
beautiful.
no, it's that. I mean, I guess that's the only real thing to talk about with this movie was the fact that they chose to make it all one mission. But it works in a certain way because you don't want to like have a bunch of title cards that keep popping up saying now for Apollo 12. Now for Apollo. You just want to hear the stories.
Though you do kind of have that option on the closed captioning track.
Oh, really?
If you turn it on, it'll tell you
when you switch missions,
who's talking, and what mission they were on.
Well, I'll tell you who's talking. It's a baby.
It's not a baby.
Oh,
there have been no babies in space.
That's the next frontier.
Yes.
Leave baby in space.
Don't leave the baby in space. That's terrible.
Well, I want to see what a space baby is like.
Superman is what a space baby is like.
No, Superman is not what a space baby is like. A space baby is the opposite of Superman. Space baby can't walk on Earth.
I suppose that's probably true.
I'm just saying.
Oh, space baby.
Yeah.
That would be, suddenly thinking about it, I think Space Baby would just be really tragic and disgusting.
It would actually be really cruel, and I'm sorry I suggested it.
Super, super cruel. But giving birth in space would be
very
more terrible.
Yeah, but kind of a fascinating experiment.
Yeah.
Probably borderline impossible.
I would definitely need like a full body condom if I were helping someone give birth.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about that, but it's a really gravity dependent activity.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how getting the baby actually out would go down.
You need some of those tools from Dead Ringers, I think.
Ugh. That's gross.
Isn't it?
We don't need to talk about that ever again.
Sorry I mentioned it.
Yeah, don't
On
mention
that
that.
note, do we have anything else to say?
Yeah, no, just, if you didn't watch it before you listen to this podcast, you clearly don't understand how this podcast works yet.
Yes.
What's wrong with you? But also, why are you still listening? But yeah, this is a great movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Great movie, very engrossing.
Yeah, it's 80 minutes of. I thought it was 90 minutes, but 80 minutes of.
No, it's 81 minutes.
Okay, well, whatever.
That's how long it is, and that includes the credits,
which are beautiful.
Yes,
81 minutes of space. So if you like space at all, it's awesome.
Yes, this movie made me want to be an astronaut.
I know
again.
It's
and
so
I'm
painful.
Far too old and fat for that now.
Well, we just have to wait for commercial space visits.
Yes. Start saving for that one now, Pat.
Well, you never know.
Even if it exists in your lifetime, it's not going to be financially viable.
You never know. Things happen.
Maybe. Anyway, thank you once again for listening to Lost in Criterion. Next time around, we are going to be talking about The Unbearable Lightness of Being, the 1988 adaptation of the 1984 novel of the same name, said to be unfilmable.
They say that a lot.
Yes, that gets tossed
around. They
around
need to stop doing that.
It's just like a challenge now.
And, really, it is.
And all the different things that have been unfilmable. Lolita was said to be unfilmable, and we've had multiple adaptations for that, more or less. This was said to be unfilmable, blah, blah, blah.
Cloud Atlas.
The Apollo missions were said to be unfilmable.
Well, but that was more of a technical issue.
A dumb thing, Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yep, see you next time.
You've been listening to Lost in Criterion, a production of With Two Brains. The show is hosted by Adam Glass and John Patrick Owatari Dorgan. Jonathan Hape did the music, and Adam Glass also edited it all together. Feel free to contact us by email via lostincriterion@withtwobrains.com or join us on the web at www.lostincriterion.com.